And now for something completely different.
To call AI controversial is an understatement. Evil business practices, destructive data centers, generative slop, and devaluing of artists and their abilities are all pretty cut and dry. But the AI hate seems to have retroactively applied to forms of automation that have been standard for years. Asking Siri or Alexa in the past weren't given levels of hate that a modern home assistant employing AI might receive. But that being said, seemingly outside of the extremely online portion of the internet, AI is booming, for now, and with it, the cost of digital storage. So to combat that, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years. I decided to clear up space on an external hard drive by burning it to a physical disk. Instead of DVD, however, I'd be burning the Blu-ray. I understand why this might sound stupid. Bit for bit, hard drives and solid-state drives are probably more bang for your buck, but being able to pop a disc into a player adds something that is lost from pulling it up on Plex. Plus, custom covers and menus would let me flex some creative muscles and be a fun project. I had been out of the game for a while. What software would I use? Well, I was on a Mac, which severely limited my options. Adobe Encore hadn't been touched in years, so that was out of the question. Any online research led me to Toast, so I bit the bullet and bought it. I tried to burn my disc, and I was instructed I needed to buy a Blu-ray plugin. Okay, fine, no problem, a small price to pay for being able to have physical copies and not rely solely on streaming. Now, something that was important for what I wanted to burn in particular was having multiple audio tracks. This is great for putting custom commentaries like fan commentaries to discs so I don't have to worry about syncing up. Another great use of it would be for anime with multiple audio tracks and multiple subtitle tracks. Well, guess what Toast can't do? Multiple audio and subtitle tracks. So I poked around a bit more, and the only other option I could find was Tenerist, and that was absolutely out of the range for what I was looking for. At this point, I was stuck. Around this time, I started to see on Twitter that Claude Code was a game changer, vibe coding was the future, etc., etc. I just assumed this was the latest wave of tech bros drinking their own Kool-Aid and the 2026 version of a pixelized ape. But after Anthropic made the news for refusing to work with the US government, I started seeing more and more of it. Some projects would pop up into my feed and I'd actually be impressed with the examples. So I finally jumped into Claude Code for my first use to let me troubleshoot and optimize my 3D printer. I had done lots of reading and watched a few YouTube videos, but there seemed not to be too much information about my particular model, the Elegoo Neptune 3 Pro. Claude was able to do this basic research that I needed, and when I went to make a multicolor print, it did something I didn't expect. It created an HTML file with a checklist of when to switch colors on a multicolor print, which isn't as simple as it sounds. And it looked good. So I decided to throw something at it to see if it was just as great as everyone said. I asked it to generate a Blu-ray authoring software with everything I wanted. I did this in Claude Chat, not Claude Code, although I would later employ that. I went back and forth for weeks. I'd take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I eventually got so frustrated with the limits I decided to pay for the Max plan for 1 month so I could keep my rhythm and not having to keep coming back to it every night and try to remember where I left off. While I was doing that, waiting to burn the project, other ideas came up. I've been meaning to digitize my DVD collection for Plex, basically the reverse of my initial project, so I decided to throw a Claude prompt at it to make a program that ripped the disc with MakeMKV, encode it with Handbrake, and optimized the titling for Plex. This was the first of a few projects I've made. They are all small scale and not going to change the world, but most solve problems where there weren't easy to find solutions online. All these apps would be optimized for Apple chip computers, and that's been a great help. One thing that was big for me, I didn't want much generative artwork or anything creative to be made with AI. Yes, an argument could be made that coding is art, but the way I justify it to myself is it's this or nothing, and different existing programs just don't work. I'm not saying that's an excuse, that's simply my rationale. If the project ever grew in scale large enough, I would definitely hire an artist to make the logo, but for now, I'll let that one small piece of generative AI work. I do use AI writing just to keep track of the changes in the changelog, and that's just so I don't misspeak and that I can explain it to people who might understand it better than I do. Well, after many, many hours and thousands of test ISOs compiled, tested, and examined, DiskForge is finally live. It's basic, nothing fancy, but it does what I ask. I'll probably use Photoshop to make menus more professional looking, and save them as a JPEG to insert as a background for menus. The app isn't the prettiest, but it does what I need. I spent over 100 hours and about 2 months of time on a Claude Max program to make this happen. Again, it's not the prettiest, but it's a simple utility and a bit better looking than a command prompt. To help get the word out, I uploaded on a separate YouTube channel a short tutorial on how to use the app. Again, this AI landscape is new and changing all the time, and everyone seems to have their own stance on when it's okay and when it's not. Ultimately, I believe it's a tool, and because it was made with AI, I decided to have it be completely open source.